I think it was Mahatma Gandhi who first said, first they laugh at you, then they ignore you, then they fight you, then you win. And so then we look around and see all these things happening that are happening today that had anybody told us 20 years ago they were going to be happening today, we would have laughed at them, ignored them, scorned them, not for a second imagining any single one of them ever had a chance to come to fruition. I'm thinking, for example, let's start at 9/11, for example. And what if while the president was on that smoking pile of rubble, somebody stood up and said, Mr. Bush, in less than 20 years, I predict we're going to have several members of Congress wearing Islamic garb and openly sympathizing with the people who did 9/11. Everybody would say, no, Colin, that's stupid. I'm not saying I said that. I didn't. I would have been one of the people saying, no, that's stupid. That could never happen. And yet it did. What about the latest advancements in abortion? 20 years ago, somebody said, I predict instead of outlawing abortion, what we're going to do is increase abortion by letting women have abortions at the moment of birth if they find giving that birth is inconvenient to them for any reason. Would anybody have said, yeah, I see that in the future? Basically nobody. How about this prediction? How about this one that's happening today, 20 years ago? I predict women, boys who pretend to be girls are going to dominate women's sports in wrestling, boxing, track and field, weightlifting, and soccer, and other places. Rugby, long list. Would anybody have said, yeah, Colin, I see that coming? No, everybody would have said, no, we're not that crazy. We're not going to let mentally ill boys compete with girls in sports. By the way, it happens in the adult world too, in boxing and other places. And so all these crazy ideas start out as that are widespread now and that widely accepted. They start out with one place, one time, one moment in time, and it just makes a lot of sense to a lot of crazy people, so they push it. Flash forward up to yesterday in Sacramento, California, a woman who's known up there for being one of the Black Lives Matter organizers. They're all pissed off because cops shot a guy named Stephen Clark, apparently for no reason whatsoever, other than he was advancing on them with something in his hand in the dark. He was a known criminal, and he wouldn't stop advancing, and he wouldn't put down whatever he had in his hand. They shot him dead. Everybody's all pissed at that. And now the logical conclusion of that is what they're calling the new abolition. We have to get rid of cops because people in the community can take care of ourselves. Sounds stupid, right? Sounds like nobody would ever go for that. Yeah, well, give it a listen.
So I think it's good. I consider myself an abolitionist, so I don't think that we need the police. I think that the community can do very well protecting itself. So I think that it's a step in the right direction to stop making it. You've seen the police have been called on people all over the country for really stupid reasons, and sometimes it ends up in people getting killed. So to eliminate that, just don't call the police.
Yeah. I know it's not here in Sacramento, but do you think it is something that would divide us more, or could it send the right message, or what do you think?
I don't think the things that we do have the power to divide us. I think that people are already divided. People have already chosen a side. It's gone on so long and it's been so public in the public eye that people have already decided who they're with. So I feel like it's not going to divide us, but it is going to protect us.
And lastly, just when it comes to emergency calls, though, could it be dangerous if someone doesn't call? Like, what if they sincerely need help and, in this situation where maybe police can help them?
Well, I think as a community, we need to build a structure and put it in place so that it replaces the police, and do this in a way that doesn't emulate what we currently have, because the way that it's happening now doesn't work. So I really believe that, there could be situations where somebody actually needs help, but if it's medical attention, then you call an ambulance. If I've had my car broken into, call the police, they didn't do anything. It's always after the fact. Sometimes they're rude. So it's just, I really feel like we just don't need them, but we definitely do need things in place so that we can rely on each other instead when situations arise.
And this all stems from what? A distrust, a disconnect? What is this stemming from?
I mean, there's a long history of the police and what they're meant to do, and they're doing what they're supposed to. So yeah, there's distrust. There's also anxiety. There's fear. I mean, they're killing us in the street. So, and it happens regularly here in Sacramento. So there's fear.
Sounds like nobody would ever do something like that, right? Well, guess what? They're already doing a form of it in Cleveland and lots of other places around the country. In this town in Cleveland, they call them the interrupters. Let's see what the interrupters are up to.
A man considered armed and dangerous by LMPD is arrested for allegedly strangling a woman and raping her. But that's only part of the story. Thanks for joining us at 6. Turns out the suspect was getting paid with taxpayer dollars to actually stop violence.
He was one of the city's so-called interrupters, part of the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, which had recently increased its staff to 40 people. Natalia Martinez, we're looking into this for us today, and she joins us now live to break down this exclusive investigation.
We've been working on a story about the interrupter program, which now has a budget of $1.7 million. And just last week, Louisville's Mayor Greg Fisher gave a press conference trying to save it from cuts with a tax increase. But officers tell me this latest arrest proves the program should be axed.
They're called interrupters, men and women with criminal records, part of a 40-person staff hired through the city to prevent or interrupt crime. But some don't buy it.
There's a significant question about what it is that this group exactly does, and I don't think there's any faith in the rank and file officers that they are effective.
Interrupters are part of the Cure Violence program. They don't answer to or even communicate with LMPD. In fact, officers told us they don't even know who they are, except for this guy, Dwight Taylor, arrested Friday, tracked down at one of the Cure Violence sites after a woman said he punched her, strangled her, then raped her. Police making note of the markings on her face and neck. Turns out Taylor was an interrupter with a $33,000 taxpayer-funded salary. The head of the program, Rashad Abdur-Rahman, told me the allegations are very serious and they've since fired Taylor. But he still defends the program.
This kind of approach is absolutely the future of what public safety needs to look like.
Abdur-Rahman says homicides are down, in part because of interrupters, and says their criminal backgrounds are necessary.
They feel like they have a debt to their community, they have a debt to their neighborhood, they want to repay that. They want to be a positive force.
Councilman Anthony Piagentini says the program hasn't proven its worth and questions the interrupters' accountability. In fact, he says shootings are up.
It sounds very interesting. It sounds revolutionary. So I'm not interested in faith. I'm interested in results.
Another note, Chicago piloted an interrupters program. I gave their police department a call, and they told me they no longer work with interrupters, especially after one of their leaders was indicted as part of a federal drug and gang probe.
They have a version of the interrupters in my little town of Wilmington, Delaware. Lots of other towns have them too. In my town of Wilmington, Delaware, they're called, what are they called? Something peacemakers. They give out a flyer. The first thing on the flyer, it says to the young fellas in the streets, it says, don't talk to cops. Don't talk to cops. So this is like the official version of stitches for snitches. And now these same people that say, don't talk to cops, they come around the year later and they go, hey, look, crime is down. Yeah, it's because people aren't reporting crime because you created an atmosphere hostile to people to report crime. It sounds far-fetched. It's not. It's happening right now. And so not just, by the way, lots of places have had this trouble with the interrupters, not just Chicago and Baltimore, same deal. You hire people from the hood to discourage crime. They turn out to be the biggest criminals of all. Surprise! In the meantime, what we have left is an enormous level of black criminality and violence, wildly out of proportion. Who's going to interrupt this?
My kids go up and down that street too.
Police say Carolyn Tiger had been in a minor crash on Meadowview Drive. That person followed her down Elm Eugene Street and blocked her at the intersection of Patton Avenue. Her and two other people, including a child in a car seat, stuck inside the car.
Out of the vehicle, she zoomed off because she saw him going to the trunk. And when he was going to the trunk, I'm looking like, what is he getting ready to do?
He then started shooting.
Subject is 1032 with a AK-47 assault rifle.
Carolyn tried to drive away but crashed into this fence. She later died at the hospital from a gunshot wound. Her alleged killer took off in a blue Hyundai.
That's my great-grandbaby.
Those who live nearby, like Mary, now taking a closer look at her family photos.
That's my granddaughter, my great-grand.
As she becomes sick at the thought of losing someone because of random anger.
Could have paid for it to get that fixed. Why would he shoot her because of a minor accident?
Friends are remembering the life of Mohammed Sharif, a UTC student who was shot and killed while trying to sell an Xbox One outside the River City North apartments in the Hickson area. And this happened on Tuesday afternoon, and our Casey Freeman is live from the Chattanooga Police Department with more. Casey?
Well, David, Chattanooga police investigators have arrested this man, DeMarcus White. He was charged with criminal homicide. Mohammed Sharif's friends shared their condolences on Facebook. Dozens of people posted on Facebook with a heavy heart after the news about the death of their friend Mohammed Sharif. Chattanooga police investigators say Sharif's phone records show he was in communications with DeMarcus White earlier in the day. The two were exchanging messages on Facebook about selling an Xbox One. Sharif's friends posted on Facebook calling him uplifting. Out of respect for the family, they did not want to go on camera, but they say Sharif would have given the guy the Xbox if he really needed it that bad. According to court documents, White messaged Sharif intending to rob him for the Xbox. During the robbery, White shot Sharif in the back. A friend posted saying, "This makes me sick that someone could do something so heartless." Sharif's Facebook profile says he was a student at UTC and a member of the class of 2019. Another classmate posted thanking him for guidance through freshman and sophomore year. They call Sharif a kind, good-hearted man who could lighten any dark room.
Judy Williams says she was watching TV when she noticed the alarm.
And the back light come on, the buzzer went off, and I went out there just expecting to see a little animal of some sort, and walked about 20 foot away from the back door, and a tall, thin guy come running from the back of the garage and grabbed me, slammed me to the ground face down, and started beating me over the head with a rock or some kind of stone on my back. I had my hand over the back of my head and screaming for my husband. And
Judy says after hearing her scream, her husband Gene came to her rescue, but she says that's when the attacker changed his focus to Gene.
I ran in the house and got the gun and come out and just started shooting, and he ran.
Both Gene and Judy have substantial injuries.
Minor bruises and cuts and stuff, and on my hand where I had my hand over my head, and I have several staples in the back of my head where I never did lose consciousness, but a lot of blood. My husband lost an eye.
All during the discussion of the interrupters or the abolitionists, all during that discussion, underneath the discussion, and not one reporter will sit there and ask about it, is this what they think is to be a plain fact. Black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything, especially why cops are always arresting, trying, convicting, sending to prison, letting out and putting back in prison right away. That's why that's why that happens to black people wildly out of proportion. White racism.
Please, sir, I want some more.
Nobody will ask about that. Nobody will confront them with this enormous level of cognitive dissonance. You're saying black people are victims, yet we have black crime where black people are victimizers. Wildly out of proportion. There's no conflict there. Apparently not. Or apparently talking about this enormous level of cognitive dissonance that lets black people going around saying we are the relentless victims of white racism even as we commit all this violence against white people. Nobody wants to bring that up because that will absolutely make the black kids angry.